Welcome, everybody, to the Code of Shame Veterinary Podcast. I am your host, DrAndyRoark. I'm here with my dear, good friend, Dr. Mary Gardner today. If you have not heard a Dr. Mary Gardner episode, you're in for a treat. I love having her on the podcast. She's so interesting. She's so insightful, so funny. We went to vet school together. You'll be able to tell that. She's amazing. Co-founder of Lap of Love Vet Hospice. She owns a crematorium. And so that's sort of where this episode comes from. We talked about aftercare in the crematorium world and things like that. And so it's a really interesting conversation. A lot of things I didn't know, and I feel like it's one of those things where you're like, I should have asked that question. Why haven't I asked that question before? That's kind of the vibe on this podcast. And then I ended up asking her a question at the end about end of life care that from a previous conversation that's just kind of nagged at me ever since we had it. And we go back and have a really good conversation about the questions that we ask pet owners during the euthanasia process. So anyway, this is a euthanasia episode. I hope you're going to enjoy it. I love this episode. Let's get into it.
This is your show. We're glad you're here. We want to help you in your veterinary career. Welcome to the Cone of Shame with Dr. DrAndyRoark.
Welcome to the podcast, Dr. Mary Gardner. How are you, my friend?
I'm good, Andy.
It's good to have you back here. One of my favorite people to talk to.
Listen, I think you're probably the podcast I've been on the most.
Yeah. That's not a quality metric. I'm very well aware. You're the podcast that has invited me the most times.
I don't know what's that telling about me or you. I don't know.
Exactly right. I'm gonna have to sit and parse apart what that means for both of us. I'll tell you what it does mean. It means I enjoy talking to you very much. That's without a doubt. For those who don't know you, and I can't believe people don't know you, but for those who don't know you, you are the co-founder of Lap of Love Veterinary Hospice. You are an international lecturer. You have not one but two outstanding books for pet owners on senior years and end-of-life care, one for dogs, one for cats. I had you on the podcast. We talked about your books when they came out. Yeah, you were just genuinely a wonderful, thoughtful, insightful person. And I was reaching out to you recently. I was like, what are you fired up to talk about? And you were started telling me about some of the questions you get around cremation because you run a crematory. But you asked me about questions about cremation and aftercare.
No,
not afterlife,
aftercare. Listen, you asked me what I'm fired up about.
Yeah, no, I love it.
Get it? The pun?
Fired up about? Okay, gotcha. Okay, the crematorium. Okay. It's going to be that kind of episode.
Right. Well, listen, I own a crematorium, so I got to be a little weird.
It's going to be, yeah. I already titled this episode Awkward Conversations Around Cremation and After. So I had a feeling that's where it would go. Yeah.
I love it. Bring it.
Talk to me a bit about conversations around cremation aftercare. So you co-founded Lap of Love Veterinary Hospice, and you own a crematorium, and so you are very tapped into this ritual here. Talk to me about, is there anything in this area that you have been surprised about questions that you get? What do people not know about sort of aftercare that you feel like they probably should?
Oh, this is a good question. What I find interesting is that a lot of people don't understand more than just cremation. We're such a death-adverse society. And then definitely even more body care adverse. Like, they don't want to know about it. Mm-hmm. But a lot of people don't understand the true difference between a private and an individual and a communal. And then they think we're burning pets, and I do aquamation. So then they're like, are you melting pets? And nobody really knows, and they all want to know, but they're a little scared to ask.
Do they want to know?
Hold on. Who? The families? Not necessarily.
The families. That's what I was thinking. Okay.
The families, no. But veterinarians, technicians, I don't know if they want to know either, but then they're like, wow, I had no idea when I tell them these things. Because I've lectured on it, and they're like, I didn't know. And I want people to go visit their crematory. If you're going to own a clinic, or you're going to, be a leader in a clinic, or do in-home euthanasia, you should go visit that crematory and see how they track the pets, how they have, quality control measures. What do they do with the ashes afterwards? Because I've got some thoughts on that. So if you would allow your own pet to be handled by that crematory, that's a good measuring stick. If you wouldn't, and you're scared, find another crematory.
So, okay, so talk to me about this, because I've never done this. I want to unpack this a little bit. So let's just say, I've got a crematorium that we've been using at the practice. What is it? And I listen to Mary Gardner, and I'm like, you know what? I would like to kind of see how the sausage is made, if you will. And so I'm gonna go there. What am I looking for? Talk to me a little bit about sort of what a visit to the crematory would look like, because I imagine me as like the most incompetent OSHA inspector ever. You know what I mean? Who shows up, doesn't know what he's looking for, doesn't know what he's looking at.
Comes with flip-flops.
Help me. Help me understand what I'm doing here.
Okay, so first of all, some crematories may not be open to the public, and I'm air quoting here, right? So they may not be open to the public. And that, I understand why some may not be, but I also then question that. And they may just be completely wholesale. So they're only doing business to business. So they're only, servicing clinics. But for instance, in my crematory, we also not only do we service clinics, but we also service families that their pet died, at home, and they want to, they woke up and their pet has gone, so they come directly to us. So if your clinic, your crematory allows you to go visit, show up at any time. We have an open door policy. You don't have to make an appointment. I may not want you visiting the back at that moment if we've got pets out, and it may be a little bit shocking to some people. We're in the vet space, so we have seen pets that are not alive, but not everybody has. But anyway, so the first thing I want to do is, how do they answer their phones? Are they polite? Are they lovely? Are they compassionate? Do they sound like they've got a mouthful of marbles? Because your families may be calling them. Or they'll look it up and they'll say, hey, who do you use? Oh, you use Rainbow Bridge Crematory? Then they might call up. So how are they with customer service? Because, and how, how they handle everything is a reflection of how they handle the pet. Yeah. And how is their lobby? Because if you've got a family that you're taking care of a golden retriever, Andy, and the golden's got osteosarcoma, and the dog passes on a Sunday and your clinic's closed. And they're going to have to, and what are they going to do with that pet? They could bring it to an emergency clinic maybe, or they could bring it directly to the crematory. So you should know this. What are the hours of operation of your crematory? Do they have pickup services? So let's say now the family has to bring Rocky to the crematory on Sunday. How is their lobby? Does it look nice, or does it look like a mass production site? Because, they're going to be doing hundreds of pets a month, cremation. So you're going to see a lot, but you don't want the lobby to look like that. Right. So how is the lobby? How are they, what is their hours? Things like that. So then if they're willing to show you, and also their insurance, because there is stuff going on in the back that they may not have insurance to cover strangers or whatever, but most of the time you could go into the back. So you're going to look, how do they store the pets? How do they track the pets? So when they come into the building, how will I know if Rocky is going through the process appropriately? How do they take the paw prints? How do they do the fur clipping? How do they make sure that Rocky's paw print doesn't go into, Misty the cat's bag, and that's going to be totally two different paw prints? How are they handling that pet? Are they just tossing them into the machine? The big thing is ensuring that you're tracking the pet correctly, and then you're going to ask, like, what do they do with the pet afterwards if it's a communal? And so, and that's a whole other topic. But the big thing is tracking, and ask them, what happens if a mistake is made? Okay. And I will tell you, for us, what happens when a mistake is made, because we've had mistakes. And that's the first thing, is that a crematory better say they've had a mistake and not hiding that, because it's rare you're going to be doing tens of thousands of pets and not have somebody didn't follow a process. Sure. Right? Like, listen, there's doors coming off of airplanes now, right? Like, stuff happens even with the best of checklists. Yeah. And for us at my crematory, we will refund that family absolutely your cost. So even though I only charge you $90, but you charge the family $250, we'll refund the family $250. We'll get the memorial items. We're going to ask them to send a picture. We're going to get an etching done. Like, we go above and beyond because we know how horrible that is. Mm-hmm. And we want to protect you as the clinic from being the bad guy, because we are a reflection of you. And if we screw up, you guys picked the wrong crematory. So we take it on. We call that family. We don't ask the receptionist to call and say, sorry, we misplaced your ashes. Like that's just horrible. And it's only happened to us in 6 years 3 times. And and we know what happened, and we fixed it, and it hasn't happened in a long time.
Yeah, that makes sense. I actually had that thought when we were sort of talking earlier. I mean, it happens at vet clinics where the box gets checked on the paperwork, but the tag doesn't get done correctly. It's just human error is just real.
It's real. I'm going to say something too, and so many people blame a crematory for doing things, but we as clinicians and technicians and the staff have to make sure that it's done correctly at the clinic. And I'm telling you, it is a shock to see what some clinics do. So my brother runs the crematory that I own, Monarch in South Florida. And he sometimes calls me to ask what should he do, because he has arrived to clinics and there's maybe 10 bags in their freezer not identified at all. He's arrived. Yeah. And so then they're scrambling, and he's like, well, if you put the wrong tag on Misty versus Rusty and we do the pop, then it's going to be looking like we did it wrong, right?
Yeah.
So we also ask for the breed, the color, the age, like all these things, because when we're opening the bag, we want to make sure that we're looking at a black cat, not an orange cat, right?
That totally makes sense, yeah.
And then there was another time, it was so sad. He's like, Mary, they didn't call us to come pick up. They had, an influx of animals. So they put a pet on top of the freezer, not inside the freezer. And by the time we got that pet, it was not in a state that we could make memorial items. We couldn't do paw prints and stuff like that. So we would have come and picked that, but they're not even thinking. They're like, well, what do you want us to do? So it starts with us on how we treat at the clinic, sorry, not the at the clinic, of how we treat that pet and make sure they're identified immediately and check the right boxes.
Yeah, that's wow. That totally makes sense. Let's start at the clinic and kind of work backwards a little bit. So in your experience with Lap of Love, and you lecture on euthanasia and end-of-life care, how do you talk about cremation and sort of aftercare options? What do you say to pet owners?
Okay, so when they're calling in, obviously they know what they're calling for, and when I lecture, I give a really good example. So when they call in, they probably haven't thought about it. Like they may have, but they don't know. They don't know what the burial options are. So we'll typically ask, have you thought about what you want to do with Rusty's body afterwards? And because we shouldn't assume anything. And I'll usually ask an audience, like, who here doesn't want their ashes back for their pet? And there's always a handful of people that don't want it. And so then I'll say, oh, what? Do you not love your pet? Because we have such a stigma that getting ashes back equals love your pet more. And it doesn't. It just means you're not attached to the ashes, right?
Well, yeah. I have ashes in a closet in my house, and I ask every time I find them, I'm like, why do I?
Why?
Like, again, it doesn't. I don't know. Maybe again, everybody's different. I'm not saying other people should feel differently, but I was like, I don't display them. It makes me sad.
It makes me sad. Like, I think sometimes it's a bridge during your grieving process to have those things back. And then after 10 years, you may be like, I'm going to go to the beach and scatter them, right?
Yeah.
Or the mountains.
Exactly.
But it doesn't mean you love your pet less if you don't want those ashes. So when you are on the phone and the family, and you're asking, what have you thought about what you want to do with Rusty afterwards? And they're like, oh, I want to get him cremated. Then what most people say is, do you want his ashes back or not?
Yeah.
And just by saying not is a negative word. So instead of saying that, why don't we say, would you like Rusty's ashes back, or would you prefer the crematory spread them for you?
Oh, I like it. Yeah.
Right? Something as simple as that, because the first wasn't wrong. Would you like the ashes back or not, right? No. But the other way is a lot gentler, and it also gives them permission that it's okay to not get them back. Like, don't feel obligated to get them back. And so that's step one. And then if they go into more questions, your staff needs to know exactly what to say, what not to say. Little things like, well, when is the crematory going to come pick up? How long is he going to stay there in your clinic? Or is it going to come the next day? Like,
wow.
People will ask all these things. They ask us a lot because we're taking the pet with us in our car. Right. And, are you going to go now to the crematory? And we don't. We go to our homes. We all have freezers in our homes that we put them in. But they'll, and never lie. Never say that you're going to go, I'm dropping them off at the crematory, because then they're going to call the crematory and say, oh, is Rocky there? And then the crematory is going to be like, Rocky who?
Yeah. Yeah.
So starting with the phone call is important And I don't also upsell urns. I don't feel, because in humans, we die naturally, and a week later you're planning, or that during that, days later you're planning the funeral, you're planning urn, you're planning a casket and stuff like that. So when we do a euthanasia, it's the death, it's the funeral, it's everything all at once. And to upsell an urn, I don't like. So I like to pick a really nice urn. As a clinic, don't just pick the boring box, pick a nice one that's going to be, that they can have. And then afterwards, if a family wants a different urn, I always just go on Etsy. There's so many options out there. It's amazing. I can't carry enough to show you all the cool options. Even at my crematory, we don't carry urns because there's thousands.
Yeah.
And they're awesome.
So if I'm talking to the pet owner, I'm like, would you like the ashes back, or would you like to have the crematory spread them for you? The first question I have is, where are they going to spread them?
Very good question.
I don't think I could accurately immediately answer that question, in all honesty.
So a lot will say, oh, we have a memorial garden that we spread them out of. Okay.
Yeah.
Or they have acres of land that they spread them on. So, which may be true, but we have so much ashes that we have to spread per month. It would kill any garden.
I was gonna say, yeah. It seems amazing.
In 6 months, I could probably fill my bedroom full of ashes. So you're not placing that on a memorial garden, and I'm a small crematory, right? And we do 800 a month. So in about 30% or 40% are communals. So for what we do, we actually spread them out to sea. So we go 3 miles out and we spread them out to sea. And so I think it's just good to know what they do. Now they may just take a teaspoon and put it in the memorial garden. Some may, let's just be honest, they may put them in the garbage.
Yeah.
How do you say that then, right? So
I think
I
we have to work on our phrasing of that for sure.
We do.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Again, I don't want to mislead people either.
No.
These are questions I have not asked that I've.
And it sucks sometimes so maybe that's not the best option. I don't know. Well, there was one time I was lecturing, and it was in Texas, and this girl, she raised her hand and she's like, well, we have on our sheet, it's either private or disposal. And I'm like, no, don't say disposal. Don't say that. And so she's like, no, but that's what it is. I'm like, no, it's a communal. And then she's like, no, it's actually disposal. I'm like, I'm sorry, tell me the words that you're speaking here. And so she says, the crematory, there's only two options, and it's a private cremation, or they dump the whole body into the landfill. There is no communal at all, which is totally legal. They throw the body, into the landfills. And this is somewhere and she's like, and that's 2 hours away. It's like Bufu, Texas. And I'm like, I don't know how to make that better. I don't have the answer for that. I don't know what to say, but I just said it's still aftercare. But sometimes you just can't make things pretty.
You can't sugarcoat it. Yeah.
I can't sugarcoat that. I'm still working on that one. So don't say disposal though. Yeah. Or would you like, yeah. Anyway, and think about 30 years ago, there was no pet crematories.
Yeah.
That's what they did.
Oh, totally. Oh, yeah.
Right? It's sad.
I had this mentor. And it was like, I was a young vet, and I worked for this guy, and he was great. He was a great guy. And we would, I always love it when the older vets tell the younger vets about mistakes they made in their career. I think that's so healthy. And totally. I think it's so helpful for everybody and for the profession just to sort of share that back. And he talked about back in the day, and he put a horse to sleep, and they took it to the dump, and he did not use enough pentobarbital, and the horse woke up and was running around the dump, and they had to go to the dump and get the horse.
Oh my God!
And I've never forgotten the phone call from the dump about, you need to come get this horse. And so anyway, when you say that, part of me is like, I can't believe that's what happened. But yeah, I know it is.
I know. And I've heard, it's crazy. One time I heard a story. I was doing euthanasia, and the family was like, oh, this is so much better than last time. I'm like, oh, really? What happened last time? And they felt like I could tell they wanted to share. And they said, oh, the veterinarian put my dog in a black bag and shucked it over his shoulder and carried him out. I'm like Santa Claus?
no.
And they said, yeah. And I'm like, when was that? Andy, I thought they were talking 30 years ago.
30
They
years
said,
ago, yeah.
2 years ago. I'm like, what? Yeah, like it's surprising. And then another time, my brother, he was helping a mobile vet. She's like a general mobile vet. And she's like, oh, can you come help? Because it's a Great Dane. So he came in and her technician to the house. Her and the technician were carrying the Great Dane out by its legs, hanging, and the head was flopped out, carrying it outside the house. They didn't even think about, this is the last 2 years. And so he's like, stop, let me go get my stretcher. And so then he went in with this, and they're like, oh, we didn't even think about a stretcher.
Yeah.
This is like now it happens.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And he's like, oh, please, here's our stretcher. And, it's $70. Like, it's so worth it.
I mean, yeah. Oh, absolutely. But again, to be kind to our people, which is it's if no one ever shows you the stretcher,
Totally.
I know it seems ridiculous, but if you've never thought about it and you've got this pet and you're like, I guess I'll take the bottom side and you'll take the top side, it's
true. I don't mean to trash us, but it's true.
But that's the most terrifying thing to me in aftercare is when you're not thinking and then all of a sudden you can see yourself from the outside and you're like, oh no.
Right.
This is
what?
Like that stuff gives me nightmares.
Totally. I remember I was speaking for a conference that I was in Zion National Park in October, and the loveliest gentleman.
At that conference.
Oh, it's so good. It was beautiful.
Oh, totally speak there.
Oh my God.
Zion, if you're out there.
Exactly. Hook me up.
Hit me up in the show notes.
DM me. So there's this gentleman comes up afterwards, and he's probably in his late 60s or so. And it's just the sweetest guy. And sometimes I get a little like, I don't know, they've been in this field longer than us. What am I going to teach them? That kind of thing, right? And so he's like, thank you so much. What I've realized, and he started to cry, he's like, I've been doing it all wrong.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, no. Like, you didn't know, like, what you could do. And he was so happy to change a few things. And that was both euthanasia and aftercare and stuff like that. But it was just it was sad to see him cry, but lovely that he was humbled by it and could say, thanks for teaching me new stuff.
Well, isn't that the soul that we all want to have, is to, I want to be the person, in my 60s and 70s who's listening to someone who's got new ideas and going, oh man, I get that. That's better. Or that's better. I'm gonna try that. I think that's huge. Guys, I have got some huge news. My new card game is out. That's right. If you were a fan of the last card game that me and my team made, it was called What's on My Scrubs. You're going to love our brand new card game. It's called Dr. Know-It-All. It is a trivia game meant to be played in teams. It's a mixture of trivia and BS, and it is guaranteed to make your team laugh. All of the questions are meant to be challenging for your whole team. They are based on the difficulty level of the VTNE exam. So this is the Veterinary Technician National Examination. It is great to play with your veterinarians. It doesn't need your veterinarians. It can be toned up and down in difficulty. We have a number of different ways to play the game so that if you have a newer team or a team that is learning, we can tone the game down very quickly and make it fun and engaging and educational for them. And if you have got a bunch of vets that want to go hard in the paint, we can go hard in the paint, and the game is made to turn up to that level. It's really flexible that way. It is going to be fun, and your people are going to enjoy it. It is made to be played in small teams. That's the team building part. We get people together. It's just like regular trivia when you go to the restaurant or the bar and they have groups and everybody gets some time to quickly figure out, what do you think? What's our answer? It is there very much that. So it is perfect to be played in 5-minute bursts. You can put it at the beginning of your staff meetings just to make people laugh. You can do a couple of rounds of trivia and then get into your business, or you can just say, hey guys, we're going to have a team meeting. We're just going to do some trivia. We're going to get some food. We're going to hang out together. We're going to laugh together. We're going to do trivia. We're going to play some music. We're going to do whatever we do. And then everybody's going to leave with a smile on their face. Guys, I wanted to make that for you. I had such a great time with our first game. I think this game is going to be really fantastic. I think people are going to really love it. Head over to DrAndyRoark.com right now to learn all about it and get your copy sent to either you or your practice. Check it out. Let's get back into this episode. I want to shift conversation here a little bit. This is a personal shift for me. You know, we've talked many times before, and one thing you said one of your previous visits that has sort of stuck with me a little bit, and I always think about every time I do a euthanasia, I think about it. So you and I had talked about having conversations with pet owners who were putting their pets to sleep. And you said, and I'm sort of paraphrasing, but basically you were like, you know, they probably don't want to talk or they don't want to necessarily reminisce about pets, or they've been through a lot, and maybe bringing up memories or things is not something that's beneficial. And so I really wrestled with that and sat with that, in that one of the things that I have seen people really light up about is if they, and again, it's you have to read the room.
That's what I was going to say. You gotta read a room.
But some people really, because I'm walking, some people really seem to open up that way. And so I'll walk in and I'll see someone and I don't know them very well. And I feel like this is a really important thing. And I don't want to say, you know, I'm not trying to do a ceremony here. You know, I'm not trying to take the spotlight away from anything. But I always think to myself, is there something that I could say or a question that I could ask that would try to frame this into a happier memory than what it is? And then I sort of hear your voice going, well, you know, they've already been through a lot, and you're kind of bringing these things up. Can you walk me around through this one more time and sort of help me out here?
Okay, I'm glad you brought this up because I want to make sure I like kind of explain myself well. I think what I mean by that is many people, especially in this awkward moment or stressful moment, and they don't know what to say, so they ramble, and they talk, and they ask questions that are not meaningful, or like they don't understand but they're scared of silence. I think silence is okay, and I think we're scared of silence in these awkward moments, so you ramble, and that I just want to avoid rambling and read the room. Yeah. If I can barely breathe because I'm sobbing so much, crying over my pet, don't ask like, what's your favorite memory? Right? Like I can't. I tell you, when people say, what's the number one, you know, thing that can make a great lap of lavette, right? And they're like, compassion. I'm like, no, we all have compassion, guys. We're oozing out of our pores with compassion. It's knowing how to read a room. Like you gotta know. And I just want those that find when they're in an awkward situation, they ramble, enjoy the silence a little bit. Yeah. And then I think what is your favorite memory? Like if you can find that space, and they might say, I have so many, you know, and I know, me too. And just, you have to have an organic, natural thing. I think when people know that I've done thousands of euthanasias, right? They're like, oh, you must not cry anymore, you know, because you're so used to it. And I'm like, no. I definitely cry more now because my medicine and my process is down pat. I could be in a blackout room. I know where my doctor bag is. I could hit any organ. I got it. Like I could do it. The doctor stuff down. So I now focus on the experience and that family and that relationship. And I'm like, you know, already helped you. Like, and I'm hearing their stories and I'm in it. And I'm not just asking almost with a void, like, oh, what's your favorite moment? Like you have to be behind that question. And that's what I mean by that. So I'm glad we brought it up because I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, that definitely does help. I've always you have such insight and knowledge, and I just respect you so much, and you have so much insight in these things, and I just kind of rolled around with that backwards and forwards. And one of my go-to questions is, and again, you read the room, and some people don't want to talk, and you know that's sort of it. One of my go-to questions is, you know, how did Buster come to live with you?
If you don't know them, right? Like,
that's exactly it. How did Buster come into your life?
Dear as a family, you know.
And I've heard some great stories. Totally. I mean, just great stories. And again, their face brightens up because this was the happiest time of the pet is arriving and joining the family, and it's kind of a guaranteed kind of I don't know, kind of lift up.
No, I love it. And I think if they're also struggling with like, or they're standing over Buster and they're like, I'm sorry. I got to try to shift that a little bit. Yeah. So I think it's almost as an injustice to that moment for me to say, do this. Cause you really have to, at that moment, pull out your I have a Rolodex of cards of things I'm going to say. Yeah. Things I'm going to do. Right. And by the way, I have, you know how you said, like people who admit mistakes. I've said stupid things sometimes. And I'm like, oh, I can't say that again, right? Or and sometimes I'll joke, like there'll be a great family and they'll joke, and I'm like, damn, that was good. But I can never say that again anywhere else because it'll never have that situation.
We'll never land again.
We'll never land. Yeah. I remember my one of my worst ones was this dog, and so I was talking about the sedation, and I was like, oh, this may sting a little on the way in, sort of like a tequila shot, and they were cool. Oh wait, hold on, let me back it up. They were a row of Harley Davidsons were out front. It was a clan. So it was a clan of guys with big beards, like ZZ Top bandanas, all that stuff, right? And so I'm like, oh, so Harley's the dog's name. You know, I'm like, it's going to be like a shot of tequila. Now, I might have assumed, I made some assumptions there.
Sure.
Okay. I did. Yeah. And so afterwards, he's holding him and he's rocking back and forth, sobbing. And he looks at me and says, he was my sobriety dog.
Oh, no.
And I'm like, oh my God, the whole clan was a sobriety clan.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So I didn't read the room well then.
No, but yeah, you make an assumption. Yeah.
I made an assumption.
You do. But so anyway, we could do a whole other podcast on this, but here's the thing about being a vet, right? And I've wrestled with this in my career. There's not making assumptions about people has a cost as well. You know what I mean? If you're like, I'm not going to say anything to you unless I am 100% certain of its relevance to you. You know what I mean? Then
totally.
You're not going to make that connection. And again, we want to be smart. Sometimes we sort of try to connect with people. We have to have some grace. I think I would want, if as the pet owner going in, I would like to work with people who try to connect with me. And if they occasionally kind of put their foot in their mouth, I think I would give grace to that over someone who's like, we're not going to talk to this guy because he's upset and we don't know him. And so we're going to lean back. There's just nuance there. And I think it's so important to give yourself grace as the vet, because you get drawn into all kinds of ridiculous situations that you never signed up for. Yeah.
I wish, you know what? I wish I got graded a little more heavily on my personal skills, because I was not the smartest when it came to didactic stuff. And so I thought when we were in clinics, that's where I shined. And I think people appreciate that. And I always say, do not make your chase of perfection hurt you just being good. It's okay to be really good. But people are chasing perfection, and it's the enemy of good.
Yeah,
and
totally.
Trust me, I am # not perfect.
I think you're pretty freaking great. Dr. Mary Gardner, thanks for being here today. Where can people follow your adventures and exploits?
Well, they can just follow me following you. Is Dr. DrAndyRoark, but Dr. Mary Gardner.
Stay subscribed to the Kona Shame podcast, apparently. You'll be hearing a lot from her.
No, so Dr. Mary Gardner is where you can find me, my website, social media, and stuff like that.
Awesome. Thanks so much for being here. Guys, thanks for tuning in and listening. Take care of yourselves, everybody. And that's what I got. Guys, thanks for joining. Thanks, Mary Gardner, for being here. Boy, I enjoy the heck out of her. If you enjoyed this episode, please tell a friend, pass it on, share it to people, write me an honest review wherever you get your podcast. That means the world to me. It really does. Anyway, guys, take care of yourselves. I'll talk to you later. Bye.